Home to some, a place of work for others, Johannesburg's vibrant inner city is a melting pot of cultures and languages from all over Africa. But for years, a crisis has been threatening to cut off its blood supply.
It's so critical for us to keep up with our payments, because at the end of the day, we're not only supporting ourselves and supply of electricity and water to ourselves, but we're also supporting a system which makes sure, for example, that our streets and our stadiums are cleaned. It makes sure that we don't have plagues of literal plague of rat infestations. It makes sure that our rubbish is removed. It makes sure that our sewer is carted away.
I've got a lady, that lady was standing here, she deals only with municipality. That is her position, to go and stand there the whole day, where sometimes when she walk in, the computer are not working, the system is out of order, and she must be waiting there for the whole day. And that is what we're paying her for, to just go to the city.
In the last year, we've paid over R1 million to the City of Johannesburg for this facility. We do not qualify for any special rates. We get billed as an institution, so there's no residential rates that we pay. We cannot access any of the special grants because we're a company. But yet we're doing a favour to the city by housing homeless people in the city.
Residents of Johannesburg say the city's municipal services and billing are in crisis with no solution in sight. In the run-up to the municipal elections on the 1st of November, we investigate how this impact on the inner city of this highly contested metro. Property owners here say they are finding it more and more difficult to operate with the ballooning costs of municipal services that are exceeding the reach of their clientele. The Johannesburg Property Owners and Managers Association, JPOMA, whose members have done much to revitalize the inner city, represents the interests of property owners here.
Members of the community in the inner city, the tenants of the inner city, are under pressure themselves. The service delivery is not happening the way that it needs to happen. And we have municipal tariffs that are increasing significantly above inflation. Those increases, this year we're looking at 6%, 6.8% in that region, and of course electricity at 15%. We know that inflation is sitting at 4.5%, 5% perhaps. So immediately there is an indication of the problem.
He says most inner city tenants are low-income earners.
The cost of living in the city and paying for the services that you receive has got 3 times more expensive than it was in the past, and 3 times more than your salary has grown by. And that fundamentally is an issue. The inner city represents 13% of the population of the Johannesburg metro, and yet it accounts for 26% of the GDP. It is common cause that cities, inner cities, are the hub of the larger enterprises that happen around the city. What we need is growth. We need growth through investment. And you can force people to do many things. You can force them to pay more for their rates, more for their electricity, but you cannot force them to invest. And in fact, we've now seen a number of entities divesting out of the inner city.
Peter Dean is an independent utility specialist. He explains how Johannesburg's municipality formulates its property rates and taxes.
The way that the city of Joburg calculates their billing is based on an approved tariff structure that is discussed in council at the beginning of each, it is approved in council at the beginning of each financial year, which is July of each year. The tariff structure itself is discussed quite intensely over the course of a financial year to ensure that the billing that is being raised is equitable for the people who end up having to pay the bill at the end of the day. Your rates themselves are based on your property value. So if your property is valued at a higher rate, you will pay more. And if your property is valued at a lower rate, you will pay less. Your refuse and sewer, which are also classified as taxes according to the bylaw, are raised based on the size of your stand for the most part, and your water and electricity are based on consumption as measured by meters installed on site. It is the job of the technical departments within the city of Joburg, so Joburg Water and City Power, to install and maintain the meter reading infrastructure, and also to ensure that readings are taken off of those meters and supplied to the City of Joburg's Revenue Department to calculate the final cost for the consumer at the end of the day.
Chantel XYZ is a litigation attorney who specializes in property law. She says the city is obliged to consider all input from its customers when devising tariff increases.
So most municipalities do in fact do quite wide and far-reaching community engagement on this. Johannesburg, for example, often does community meetings in all of its various regions to get the objections or the comments of people, but sometimes they're not very well attended, and all of the comments are meant to be taken into account.
She says the majority of her clients' billing disputes are over water and electricity.
There's a common period every time a municipality wants to increase its tariffs. And yes, a municipality is most certainly obligated by law to take into account any comments that are lodged during this period. And these problems usually flow from either some kind of billing error, which happens when they're issuing invoices, or it can sometimes flow from the hardware in the ground. So the meters themselves being dysfunctional. The old school analog meters, they are supposed to be calibrated once every 3 years. And if they aren't, then their calibration starts to go out and then meter readings aren't accurate.
JPOMA member Solomon Ramalumala, who owns and manages several buildings in the inner city, says at the heart of his problem is that the municipality has been estimating the usage of his metered services for years, and he disputes the accuracy of the amounts he is billed for.
Estimation is good for 1 or 2 months, not for 6 months, because we cannot afford that. We cannot afford. We do make provision on our cash flow or even on our financial overall, but we cannot able to make provision for more than 6 months. The best things that you can do as the city of Joburg is to make sure that you read the meter monthly. Rather miss it for 1 month, not for more than 3 months. Read the meter monthly and try to sort out the billing. Try to sort out the billing of electricity, for water, as well as the rates.
Dean says that according to city bylaws, meters are not meant to be estimated beyond 6 consecutive months.
Estimates themselves should be guided by the bylaws that have been stipulated by the city and should be in line with previous actual consumption. And that doesn't seem to be the case, at least on the accounts that I've worked on. Estimates are raised according to several different principles within the city, and none of those seem to coincide with each other. So you could end up with an estimate that is way higher than your actual consumption. Conversely, you could also end up with an estimate that's way lower than your actual consumption. Either way, you're going to end up with a billing problem at the end of the day.
Ramalumala says when he bought this building a few years ago, he applied to the city to have it recategorized from general to residential.
The rate was around 8,000 rand a month, which was definitely on the model of funding. And however, we did expect that after the conversion, indeed, based on the value of the property, the rates will still able to go up. And based on the value, we were expecting around 16,000 rand for the rates. But surprisingly, the rates just boom from 8,000 to almost 38,000. And now when we inquire, it's a business. You must do 1 to 3. Business how? While all the process were done through the municipality, where they even downstairs there, they install electricity meter for business, because I've got those 4 shops, and they also install the electric meter for residential. But now what they're charging here is a business tariff. Water, it's business tariff. Electricity, it's business tariff. So which now it's a problem.
He says he cannot get far communicating directly with the city.
You definitely need to engage with the lawyer, because I can tell you we tried that, where I'm talking about not me alone, but as JPAMA members, where other property owner that invested in the CBD, we tried to engage direct with the city, and there were people who actually promised us to deal with the matter. You know, they even, I remember where they have days that they open for us to try to resolve our problem, but I can tell you it was never resolved. We still have those issues until today. That lady was standing here, she deal only with municipality. That is her position, to go and stand there the whole day, where sometimes when she walk in, the computer are not working, the system is out of order, and she must be waiting there for the whole day. And that is what we're paying her for, to just go to the city. Immediately when the account is in areas, they run to hand it over to the attorneys, to the outsourced attorney that they are using. And without resolving the issue, you will get the call from the attorney, that attorney only get the amount of that this company or this building is owing us 5 million. And that attorney will be calling you asking that. When you explain the story, he's got no idea. He's got no idea of what he is representing.
He says the slow pace of the city's billing department leads to new properties acquiring debt in the first few months of operating.
The problem that we also facing as a landlord is that indeed, especially as a black entrepreneur, that we are trying to come into the business to own also this property in the CBD, you know, and we are buying it with nothing, obviously depending on the funding and the legal that you have, maybe to put it as an equity, you understand? Which also the government, I mean, they've played the part where it become affordable, because they also have some scheme where they, you know, you can able to apply the loan and get things going. But one of the main problems that I cannot understand is that you will get a transfer of the property in January, okay, after you have bought that property. Then you don't get the billing for 6 months, okay? While you are busy going there, hey, we're waiting for this, or the open rate account, you know, we're waiting, you know, all that story that comes out. Then after 6 months or 7 months, here's the billing come, boom, it's already over R1 million. And you look at your recovery, it doesn't even tie up. And immediately, new property, you are starting with debts. So some of the debts, indeed, they are correct, but there is where they're not correct. And we cannot understand.
Ramalumala says power cuts without notice have dire consequences for both tenants and landlords, and are a flouting of the bylaws.
I mean, you can look around here, you will see that there's tanks on top of those buildings. So those tanks, we actually have a pump supporting tap, because the pressure from the city, it's not enough to push the water right up to the building. So we had our own pump that use electricity to push or pump the water up, then able to go down to the unit. So once there is no electricity, it's like there is no water. And we know that the municipality has been avoiding to cut water because of, I think, not allowed by the constitution of this country, and they will still go to electricity. But it's the same, because we're still going to face the same problem as they have disconnected water, because there won't be any water in the property because the pressure is not enough.
The municipality has to send you a notice to say that we are planning to disconnect you. It has to be 14 days in advance, and it has to say the reason that we're planning to disconnect you is because of, for example, unpaid arrears of this amount on property ABC. And if they haven't sent that notice, then number one, they're not complying with the principle of giving advance notice, but number two, you are also not then able to exercise your right to make comments or representations.
Angry, frustrated tenants can assume landlords are not up to date with their municipal accounts and can pose a danger to them and to building managers.
We've had situations where our property owners had to evacuate their building managers or their staff at the building from the roof by helicopter. We've had people who have been severely assaulted, and one within an inch of his life, and we've had some building managers and staff taken hostage, where our clients had to send in basically SWAT teams with weapons in order to be able to extract people who were held hostage in the building.
Ramalumala was powerless to do anything but witness as his hard-earned business was taken away from him during an unannounced city power cut.
After they've terminated the power, it was 2-3 days, while we were still trying to negotiate with them to come back and reconnect. So what the tenant do, because they were running impatient, they then go on, or whether through Izinyoka or friends, then they managed to get that power reconnected. And immediately they were planning, we're not going to pay electricity because we have arranged to get the power connected. And immediately after 2-3 days, the city came with Metro Police again, and they went and ripped everything. And immediately we lost the building. Until today. We have court cases that is still going on. Once they terminate our electricity or service, then you have people giving you the notice to say, no, we cannot stay in this property. This month there was termination, next month was termination. Then it means that it sacrifices now your monthly income. It becomes difficult now to maintain the property, even to pay the staff salary.
Dean describes several variables that over the years have coalesced to compound the current billing problems at the City of Johannesburg.
Tariff policy that is changed year on year, that causes a confusion within the billing system as to what charges should be raised and when. There's also a ineffectual training in regards to the IT systems that have been put in place in the city. These have changed over the past decade a number of times, and the staff who are required to work with these systems have unfortunately not got all the know-how that they should have to effectively manage and negotiate the way that the charges are raised across that system. And also that there seems to be a lack of communication between the different departments within the city.
Ramalumala says garbage collection and security in the inner city are wanting. He is part of a collective that privately employs a cleaner and a security guard.
As property owner, form a seed where we contribute monthly to have our own cleaner to clean around our properties, as well as the security to make sure that our tenants are safe. And this portion of amount that we're spending, it's supposed to be covered by the rates that we are paying every month, but we end up contributing towards that, and it's to make the city to look modern and beautiful.
Dean disagrees that the municipality is not doing enough and says that the problem is too big for one entity to solve.
There is still a long way to go before the streets are 100% clean, and it's going to take the cooperation of not only business and the council, but the people living in the area as well. The water and sewerage tariffs have increased 25% over the last 3 years. Rand Water, who is the bulk supplier to the city of Joburg, have their tariff that is set every year, and the city is required to purchase water at that tariff. And then the city is also required to try and recover that cost on top of infrastructure maintenance that they're doing across all regions of the city.
How do the inner city's lower income earners survive?
The way that the city of Johannesburg in particular assists its lower income residents is through rebates. So basically the idea is that everybody pays the same for services from the rich to the poor based on the tariffs that are prescribed. However, if you have a certain income level which falls into the levels that are prescribed, you can then apply for a rebate.
A transient population group living in the inner city that is often overlooked is the indigent homeless. MES, an inner city charity, caters for them.
MES has been in operations in the inner city of Johannesburg for 35 years, and over that period we've never had special rates or any relief in terms of that. The only project where they did grant us some relief was the specific service level agreement we had with the city for the displaced people. And for that one we don't pay any utilities. And we're thinking, but if they can do it for that project, why can it not be replicated for the other projects as well?
She says this facility is subsidized by the Department of Social Development, but their subsidy excludes utility costs. Because MES is a company, they don't get billed according to residential rates, but at a much higher tariff under commercial rates.
In the last year, we've paid over R1 million to the city of Johannesburg for this facility. Currently, our bill structure is roughly around 96,000 a month. Sometimes it's a bit higher, sometimes it goes over 100,000. The percentage of that bill is the bulk of it is going towards water.
She says several tests have failed to detect any leakages.
At the moment, the electricity, so if you work it out per head, our electricity is about 14 Rand per day per person, and our water is roughly around 1,000 Rand a month per person.
Can a homeless individual apply for a social relief package?
You have to have a municipal bill in your name. As an individual that apply for that. So they've said to us, if we can register each shelter client maybe, then they each apply for a portion, but I mean they don't each get a bill either. And they move around. They don't stay, and it's not meant to be a permanent home. So we don't want to encourage them staying too long because then they get too comfortable. I think what's very interesting development in the last year with COVID regulations is the Department of Social Development for the first time now formed a directorate for homelessness.
The tariffs across different zoning categories can vary quite dramatically, with ABC being the cheapest and LKM being the most expensive.
The Kaya shelter is a shelter that's been running for over 20 years. It's a shelter for men, and we can accommodate 100 people there, and it's part of a social housing development run by Medulla Moore Social Housing Company, and a portion of that facility is then used for the overnight shelter. And at the bottom of that facility there's a small shop that Medulla Moore then rented out to a little entrepreneur to try and generate some income to cover cost for the shelter. But then we're now getting billed commercial rates, all of us. So the social housing companies, the residential side, as well as the shelter, we all now pay commercial rates. We're doing a favor to the city by housing homeless people in the city. And we really want to make a plea to say, can there not be a special rate for not-for-profits that do offer housing solutions? Because it's a big crisis in our country.
In the city of Joburg, there are many challenges, and the challenges are big challenges. We need to be honest about that. And I think that the sooner the top brass at the municipality can be honest about that, the sooner we are going to move into a situation where we can collaborate to try and solve the problems.
Can the municipality, together with this army of dedicated and passionate people who work in the inner city, resolve its billing crisis?
Despite the state of the city, you have vibrant communities that operate, but they operate in spite of the city, not because of the city. And I guess the point would be, imagine what the potential would be, or what we could do if we actually got some of these basics right.